Welcome again to your intellectual Valhalla. The hall, if not TV studio, where ordinary thinking is slain. Series 93, 120, items 1 through, God Almighty, 83. A viewer writes, God, it's great to hear you talk about doing this kind of thing. Helps keep me from thinking about how little effort I actually make in this regard. Warning, viewers are everywhere. One man had a bad disease. The Garden of Eden, the idea of the womb, dreams of past glories are all reflected fears of man's post-survival existence. You can wait and dread a storm or fly into the face of it. The future is coming no matter where you stand. Under ordinary atmospheric conditions, it is extremely difficult for the chemistry of the brain to ever rise high enough to see over the horizon of its owner's sense of the present. Being tied to time is to be lashed to your own mechanical level of consciousness. Being bound to your own native state of consciousness is to be forever a victim and captive of time. A taskmaster who is no friend of any, shall we say, unusual mental activities. Be safe, declares the city. Stay home, neighbors, and be safe. Screw the city. One man gave his son this practical advice. Be nice to people on your way up, because you ain't going up. A baby mouse asked its mother, why do humans treat each other different than we do? And she replied, because, my dear, they don't know any better. No. Niceness, politeness, and sympathy are all words delivered with a post-survival twang. Two guys were sitting around, picking their fenders and fooling around, and one of them began to strum and sing, oh, everyone wants to be more conscious, but no one wants to go to hell. And his buddy interrupted. And said, hey, I believe the song that you're trying to do is supposed to be, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And a fellow who had not only studied the cello, but who had once also refinished one, opined. Yes, contestants, we weren't able to fool you with that one. None of the larger members of the violin family are made out of pine. Good show all around. Some hope for the deceased. When mental curiosity is dead, you dead. Hey, what the hell kind of hope you call that? Some are on a bus, some are on a train, but everyone over 18 is on a submarine. Gurgle, 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 gray matter gurgle. The main business of civilization is business, which is what makes it so boring. Some recently unearthed history of rituals. One man told Life, I want my own personal logo. So Life kicked him in the gonzarbos and said, okay, see those little squiggly lines darting around your eyeballs? Use them. Program reminder for all of you armchair squashes. If life ever wants you to be religious, it'll let you know personally. Yeah. Further note, if it ever does attempt to so contact you, leave town. One man dreamed of a place where it was unnaturally still and from where you could see everything. A survey concerning mortal sustenance based on definitions. Family, those with whom you'll share your food. Friends, those who will share theirs with you. Life, well, I go into that now and spoil your appetite. Recently, one man pondered thusly: every living thing has an intake opening and a discharge orifice. But, seeing our universe as a closed system, where are such things? Well, why go into that just now and perhaps spoil your appetite? Daddy, how long do you think they're going to keep spelling man with an M? One guy told his brother, thinking makes me dizzy. And his brother said, yeah, but not half as much as if you didn't. And his brother said, are you positive? Everything has a name, except new mental experience. So men give it old ones. Thanks a lot, man, says one guy. Thanks for so long helping me stay lost. Yeah, right. Thanks bunches, man. You and your damned old words. Drivers are warned to watch out for sore heads on the road. Mythological progress debunked. While everyone else was having spiritual, intellectual, and poetic experiences, this one guy was having spiritual, intellectual, and pelvic ones. And to his own advantage, personally, he said. Progress is as progress does, except when it's in jammies with its own little built-in feet. 7 people ready for bed linked their arms and loudly said, we don't get it. You might also watch out for sore heads in the sheets. Mental health examined before, after, and sideways. It's pretty easy to conclude, based on what they think, that most people are nuts. Because from a liver's view, most of what people think is nuts. One day, one man thought he heard his mind say, I'm just a sample of what could be. Life can be explained in 3 words, but if you require more, you can also be accommodated. One man dreamed of a place where it was unnaturally still and from where you could see everything. He could only dream so after he had been there once. The cats secretly laugh at the birds, and hey, they don't care. And a man asked, who doesn't? Which group doesn't care? Hey, have I got to answer everything? Life told one man, if you don't like it around here, go somewhere else. Screw there not being any place else. After seeing a would-be mystical book with the title, The Resurrection of the Body, one man died from the exertion of his subsequent laughter. One day when he thought his neighbors were spying on him again, this one man began leaping about madly as he loudly sang, rip off your clothes, throw down your pants, ring up your uncles, and call out the Marines. He says that Snoops deserve a surprise now and then. And his mind asks, so why not do as much for me? Alleged fact. No one likes a smart-aleck mind. Alleged counterfact. Yes, they do. They just don't know what to do with it. One guy pretended that everything happened to everyone else. Does anyone catch the brief aroma of a potential smoking weapon here? One guy says, I originally thought that I was a metaphor for all of mankind. Then I thought I was a metaphor for just myself. And later I believed I was a metaphor for all that man might be. But now I'm just satisfied to be able to stand here and to tell you all about it. What better advertisement could there be than this could there be for the majesty of mountains, the beauty of birds, the charm of the seasons, and the mind with its reasons? The mind is not a mere merry-go-round if consciousness is the end of the ride. One man caught a rat in a trap, but when he looked at it closely, it said, I'm no rat, I'm a squirrel. And when he examined it even closer, it said, I'm no squirrel, I'm your mind. And the man said, hold it. Let's go back to the rat part. A philosopher without a job is like a squeak looking for a wheel. One man says, you know, sometimes I can go all day and not actually make any effort to push my consciousness beyond the ordinary verbal level. I'm not bragging when I tell you this. I'm actually kind of ashamed. Although, even that's hard to explain, seeing as how no one knows about it but me. The two basic time zones on this planet are survival and post-survival. The body runs on one, the mind on the other. Life told one man, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you your choice. You can either be affected by everything or just one thing. Which will it be, Twinkle Breath? The man asked me to ask you people if you could help him out in this. Screw illusionary choices. One man had a bad disease, but dreaming of the place where everything was unnaturally still and from where you could see everything cured him. Actually, going there really cured him. Some spiritual warmth and assurance for some city dwellers by way of a definition. Religion. Fake fireplaces for sham chills. A lad asked his dad, how come some people are smarter than others? And Papa replied, have you ever heard of the serious meter? One day a boy asked his father, how come some people are more fun than others? And his old man replied, have you ever heard of the dumb index? And one later day a young man asked himself, is there a connection in there somewhere that I could be missing? There's two sides to this kind of stuff, talking about it and doing it. One of them seems to be more attractive than the other. One man concocted a private mental alarm system to warn him whenever he was lapsing into regular states of consciousness. Only problem is that whenever he's in such a state, the alarm doesn't work. A viewer asked, do you literally mean that the alarm then doesn't work or that he forgets to put it in use? Is anyone here going to try and tell us that there is a difference? Yet another way that life protects the innocent from hearing extraordinary ideas, at those times when they may not simply find them ridiculous, is to make them sound pessimistic. Well, after all, who's going to chase bad news? No, besides the sane and the ordinary. At first, one man told life, let me out of here. Then later realized that his mind was, in fact, the only performer who could take off his vest without removing his jacket. In a world of determinable dimensions, it seems impossible that anything could turn itself inside out. But don't you bet the Studebaker on it. Where do you think the extraordinary comes from and disappears to anyway? One man had two places to sit, but he didn't like either one of them. Poets, serious idiots. Equal time. Oh, wherefore art thou equal time? Okay, equal time. Philosophers, the seriously serious. Priest, the idiotically serious. Artist, the non-serious. But poets are still the serious idiots. Come back, little idiot. I've always relied on the kindness of the serious. Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble, equal times will cook me alive. Poets, the end. And now, this feature. How the normal care and feeding of the mind can lead to an expansion of consciousness. But first, this message regarding how to stuff a tomato to the point that it'll turn into a pumpkin. Is there anyone who can prove that there is an actual struggle between the quantities of the mind and the quality of consciousness? After having visited the place once or twice, a man thought, now I know where the place is, and I know which vehicle will take me there. My only question now is how to get the thing cranked up anytime I want to. Ooh, sweet Jesus, what a question. Remember, folks, I don't write them, I just read them. Or for you people on an alternate wavelength, I don't write them, I don't read them, I just write them. Sweet Jesus, what a reminder. Civilization wrung out again and hung up to dry for your examining convenience. Men wear suits so that their alligator hair won't show. One man said, "Sometimes I don't know where I am, but being around others who don't also helps a lot." As the children skipped on one foot and periodically sank, they sang, "Helps a lot, thanks a lot. We cast our lot with the suits and ties. But what choice have the innocent?" Screw illusionary choices for the second time. Operational definition, as per the way some people live their lives. Books. An excuse for lack of effort. Boy, Estelle, did you hear what he just said about reading? Boy, I'm sure glad he didn't get into the matter of talking. One man thought, if my mind ever did slow down, I figure one of two things would occur. I'd either be more conscious or drowned. They knew. Song of the open highway. My shorts are in a knot, my car is in the shop. Today I'm having root canal. Could anyone ask for more? Hint. To see life as a masterpiece, you must be able to first see beyond your own bent piece. Daddy, does this have anything to do with patience, tolerance, and humility? Not a thing, son. Not a damn thing. LBBAH. Let's be blunt around here. A man with a past has no future around here. LHSMDAH. Let's have some more definitions around here. Religion, race, nationality, and other serious, important components of civilization. One and all activities keep men from realizing just how silly and unimportant is civilization. TPEATFTTB. That's probably enough about this for the time being. Overview. Big overview. Update. In the effort to separate one's consciousness from mere thinking, how can a man mistakenly take what is not himself for himself? Don't simply say that he can't, for the world is full of those who say that indeed he can and often does. Would everyone whose name begins with a letter like to tell me what's going on here? The mayor's family's coat of arms carries this inscription: though we stand straight, we think on a slant. A man with nothing in particular going on inside of his head will oftentimes experience feet sweat. How you could look at it when life's not looking. It's better to have a plan than to not have a plan. But, Butterball, there's something even better than that. Note to the independently wealthy. Just because something doesn't seem to make sense to the common folks doesn't mean it's of no value. How numbers affect the life of man. One guy looked at the forces that run the external world and said, "Screw there being two," then looked at the same conditions reflected in his own mind and added, "What a bummer, I'm not a oneer." Above the standard brain chemistry level is a state of awareness wherein the usual numbers do not apply. Science, the ordinary attempt to understand numbers. Religion, the attempt to ignore them. This kind of stuff. An education in learning to distinguish between the printed train schedule and the smell of smoke as it drifts off into the sixth dimension, where lightning does not strike the goo field with the same regularity as it does here. Those now able to sometimes see without the aid of verbal glasses know, of course, that regularity and intensity are interchangeable. After having a personal taste of the experience, one man said, now that I know what it is, why does everyone always refer to it in religious terms? And was replied, well, what would you call it? The interest, intrigues, and pastimes of civilization are to keep an ordinary post-survival man distracted to a degree sufficient to keep him ordinary and acceptant of his position. Thus it is that you shouldn't scoff at another man's hobby, in that everyone's mother gives them toys proper to their entertainment. But also, thus it is that a man of more independent pursuits can privately laugh at everything once he gets past rolling in the aisles over his own sweet, serious self. A family portrait in words. One son said, think fast, talk fast. Another son said, own a Mercury, drive fast. And a daughter said, big nose, big gear shift. And the father said, where did I go wrong? A people guided alone by hormones with people guided simply by hormones, family matters are best kept under the bed, as is oftentimes the case with certain family members. Warning, family members are everywhere. One man's mind said, I won't bring it up if you won't. And the man replied, what? And his mind said, good, that's the way. Safari tip. When the serious don't want to appear quite so dumb, they'll smile. When the dumb don't want to appear quite so serious, they'll smile. Good, that's the way. A certain man passing through a city said, why should I tell you how to do it when I can't do it myself? And the other man who had originally approached him in the matter replied, oh, well, I'm so sorry. I thought you were some sort of official person around here and would not be so restrained. Many of the religiously car-conscious of this world think of heaven as being a place that has a body shop for the mind. Philosophy that is serious for much longer than 5 minutes can poison you. Daddy, how come the government doesn't require warning labels on mines? My son, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. The collective, life's little way of providing a horrendous example, a comparison to which makes even the humblest of individuals look good. Daddy, how did we get to be such individuals? Runs in the family, my boy. Runs in the family. Everything contemporary men do is a partial holdover of something older. And the cat choir director said, let all the birdies sing, amen. Facts, back to back, turned Jill to Jack and made her say, why can't we be more like up and down, Adam and Eve, hot and cold, or even this and that? But replied Jack, we are exactly like them. And Jill became so immediately agitated that she tumbled into an entirely new story, taking, I might add, all of the above mentioned along with her. Okay, some more help for those who expect to one day become deceased. If they know just how to do it, when they die, 3 dimensions can go straight into 6 and skip the rest. But you good musical contestants, we didn't fool you this time either. You knew that in a serious viola score there is no time for rest. As he began writing his, quote, full explanation of life, one man inquired of it, will I be getting paid by the word? To which Life replied, if you live past the letter I, you might. I guess while you're waiting on a bus or something, you could look at it like there are 2 kinds of things you might do. You can mentally deconstruct life as it is, or construct a new one for yourself. Oh, here comes number 7. That's yours, isn't it? Now you be sure and don't try to board again with an attempt under your arm. Well, bye, and be sure and don't let me see you here back at this same old corner again. Say, driver, who was that semi-mass full passenger back at the last stop with a carpenter's tool and a gossamer bag? Somebody in the rear of the bus began to softly sing, Gossamer, Gossamer mucho. until all the regular riders boot him down. Screw regular riders. And here's the lineup for today's game. Consciousness, blunt and point blank. Mere thinking, vague and inspecific. Consciousness, complex, free and forever fresh. Mere thinking, simple, inhibited, and quickly boring. Consciousness, young, vigorous, and delightful. Everything you always wanted in a lover. While just ordinary thinking remains that tired, dried up old prune of an uncle or aunt that everyone has stashed away up in their attic. Okay, Ralph, blow the whistle and let the fun begin, and may the better team win. Hey, Bruno, put me down for $10 on that first bunch. In fact, Bruno, better yet, let me be that first bunch. One guy stopped and thought, at least I'm way past the point that anyone has to convince me that this is what I should be doing. Yeah. He then picked up a cup of coffee or did something to distract himself while he thought about it again. Again. Yeah. Actually, the whole thing is pretty simple. It's just real hard to do. One man thought, at those times when I can't seem to make myself more conscious, at least it's neat having a mind that I can have so much fun with. Our resident alertness analyst responds, although the gentleman's comment is quite understandable and almost charming, I personally do not agree with your decision to air such observations, inasmuch as I feel they can offer support to those making less than their full-time absolute best efforts. You know, it could be correct. And indeed, we might even hope so. 'Tis tricky to speak absolutely about matters so downright not so. Still, after all is said and conjectured about, it's still kind of neat to at least have the kind of mind you can have a lot of fun with, don't you think? Those with no control oftentimes like to speak of the need to have control. Many different sounds arise from the intellectual city of men. The physician of the planet announced, we are all sick. Life dismissed him by pointing out to him, invalid diagnosis. You're one of them. One guy began telling his mind, skip the modifiers and get to the point. The reason that animals are so often used as metaphors for man is because there is no metaphor for man. A viewer says, I can dig it. If I could understand it, I just know I'd dig it. Other than the fact that they are nothing at all alike, a viewer is a lot like a hungry fox in the woods. Once men realized the futility of romantic poetry and country music, they began writing even more. And a viewer asked, could you speak a little faster? So mused one fellow, one nice thing about being dead is that at least you don't have to talk anymore. One man wondered, is there a danger in knowing so much about it that you never actually do it? Is there a danger in being so alive that you're actually dead? I asked if you could speak a little faster. One man discovered that just a change in his diet would make him more conscious. Well, not really, but almost. Because that's how this kind of thing goes. A certain king instructed the prince, never use the word can. Go ahead and shoot him or hang him or otherwise be done with it, but don't be yammering on about your capacity to do so. Because that ain't how this kind of thing goes. Too early in the morning, many men suffer from an overabundance of modifiers. Warning, too early in the morning can occur at any time. One man's present view, only the weak laugh, only the weaker still cry. What's that sound I hear? What's that moisture in my eye? He says that once he's saved up 12 more coupons and 600 more box tops and wrappers, he'll be able to become a greeting card poet for the First Church of Meteorological and Economic Science. After the prayer and healing services were concluded, one participant exclaimed, I'm so happy I could cry. I'm so sad I could just crackle. All distinguished historical city institutions spell excommunication using only those letters extant in the word rectum. Said a chap who had recently deserted the city. No wonder I felt so strange as I left. A father's advice to his son: if you're not quite sure who you are, use your initials. If you think the same things over and over again too many times, they'll become ritualistic. And the first thing you know, you'll be a cult. And then where will you be? See, the safest thing is just not to ever start thinking the same things in the first place. You see, said the wise old conductor to the new young band member, if you play the bagpipes, then you can laugh at a man with an accordion. And a man who had only recently had sat down on his very last Stradivarius further cautioned the new player not to, for a moment, believe that the conductor's words were intended for any usage beyond a musical one. Like intellectually, for instance. Tattooed on his upper neck, one man had these words: when at first I came down the streets, I laughed at the sight of myself. He's saving up to have it copyrighted as a song or something. The King's urban planner addressed a mixed crowd of urbans and planners with these words: civilization, my friends, will either walk through you, with you, or over you. And concluded with a closing comment given to him by the royal priest. Yes, my friends, it's your choice. Speaking as though, and in the sense that you actually have one. And as the band played Lady of Spain Go to Hell, they danced the night away. As she left the house each morning, her mother would remind her, don't forget the wine and you might get on TV. Hello, is this the information network? This is the entertainment network. Hey, don't bandy words with me. One guy's motto: so much to think, so little time. Note, to you guys who got up this morning with your head screwed on, that's what they all say. And if not them all, then far too many for you to want to have anything to do with it. Hey, sir, you can't go in there. I stumble, therefore I am. Two guys were talking. The first one says, my mind is my hobby. And the second one says, does it cost much? A new free neutron theory. If men knew the actual expense of being in the dark, would they still so willingly pay it? One man looked at the bouncy ship of life, then at himself, then thought, as long as my head's screwed on, I'm screwed on. A second-hand system is no system at all. If you don't get it from the horse's mouth, it'll never lead you to ride. Not many care for a mystic, but everyone loves him if he's dead. A second-hand system is no system. Interior decorating news. A man's personality is like his individual motif. Most people's crown molding is faux. Well, hey, Mr. Smarty Pants, who told you to look up there anyway? One guy told his son, take as long as you need and make out a list of all the things that ordinary people think and talk about, then forget about the son of a bitch and everything else. One man found it easier to get through life after he had decided that everyone's individual tastes are just a matter of taste. One man put all of his adult ideas into a bouquet and mailed it to his mother, but she didn't want them either. A man's mind said to him, say, if you're not going all the way with this thing you keep thinking about, and you stay right here, then you ought to adopt and use this maxim. A one-sided man is a happy man. Get my point? And now another episode of Familiar Conversation. Daddy, why do old people get so serious? Well, son, what else are they going to do? Be sure and tune in again next generation to see what's new, if anything. If you live in your mind, your time is never your own. After all is said and done, after all the items read, there's still a place where it is unnaturally still and from where you can see everything. Go there, why don't you? And finally, a new translation of an old Norse myth. One man walked up to another man and said, "Say, don't I see you talking on TV?" Another man replied, "It's possible." And the first man said, "Just what is it then that you're talking about?" And the first man replied, "Life." And the first man asked, "Just what is it that you say about life?" And the man replied that it's alive. And the first man said, "I knew that," and turned into a Viking and left. Besides all the attempts that people have made historically, and all the things it's called, is when I started to pull out news that said everything has a name except new mental experience, so men give it old ones. And the old ones are mysticism, transcendental experience, being awake, being in touch with the cosmos, and etc. If we could dig them all up, all those who had one experience, and they're the ones you've heard about, I could get them very easily. I mean, they'd love it. They'd lap it right back up like warm milk. If I started describing it as I have with you people, that all it is, what it is the electromagnetic energy getting into the brain. What's going on? Into areas that's not normally used.
Rain leaks.
Oh. So they always have to call it something. And they always think it's new. But they always have to give it an old name. And the thing is, once you give something an old name, it is not just playing with words. Once you give it an old name, and I say you give it an old name, then you've got to play along. That is, you've heard it and go, yeah. It takes two to name something. One person can't name something. It's one reason that, at least in the Old Testament version, that God had to create man, because he wanted to say something like, let there be man. Or, hey, do you know who I am? But anything you're going to say and put a name on, like, he said, hey, I'm it. You got to have somebody else. You can't name anything without two people present. So the old names for all the new experiences are no names, but it's the only names people have, and it does more than going, well, I'll get distracted. I keep hearing about the ideas of, say, a mystical experience. And it's more than that. There is no name for it. If it's a new experience, there is no name for it. If it's a new mental experience, there is no name for it. If it's a new mental experience, there is no name for it. There is no name for it if it's a new mental experience. So, men give it an old one. If you were going to try and play that a little bit further, you could say, well, why don't they give them a new one? Okay, go ahead while I do this. Did you get one? That is why that's the basis that I offered to give you a way to do something without sitting in one position and without playing with necessarily with appetite or exercise or any of the normal forms, is to just go to it directly. Rather than trying to think about something specifically, rather than trying to, which can be used, has been attempted, rather than trying to hold one thing in mind, or a harder version, to get really off the subject because you didn't want me to be that straightforward about it, try and think of everything at one time. Which I'll grant you, if I must, that of the two, the former is the more popular. To Lovely, the second one is just not popular at all. Oh, well, to actually be truthful with you, you'd never even heard of that method before I told you. See, everybody else, all you've ever heard about is you sit and you try and hold, either sit, or there's even been those that tried to get a little fancy with it and say, well, you don't have to just sit here and meditate in a cave or in a monastery. Go ahead back into life. But you've got to hold your mind. You've got to hold your attention on one thing is the trick. You never hear, all right, go back out, and here's what you do. Don't ever let your mind stay on one thing. I mean, the first one, insofar as a person being able to do it, is very questionable, somewhere between questionable, problematic, and don't bet the Studebaker on it. No. Don't hold your breath. The second way is so far beyond that nobody even thinks about it. We're back to the area that many people love, including me, of thinking, why does nobody ever notice that? Why is every attempt in every culture, under whatever guise, of trying to do something that seems to be a bit more directly aimed at the mind, why is it always on the basis of trying to focus the attention, trying to hold the attention, trying to think of one? Some people tried, you've seen the mantras, the actual paintings of trying to picture the face of Buddha. They're trying to picture this lotus, trying to think of one word, no matter what it is, fusha, forever, no matter what's going on. You try and hold a piece of your mind that's constantly going, fusha, fusha. Everyone's heard of that has any interest in trying to do anything extraordinary, whether they tried or not. And those that have some interest, it even strikes people as, well, that would be a benefit. And it would. Can anybody do it? Don't bet the Studebaker. Can you do it? Of course, I notice that none of you are driving Studebakers, so I'm not going to ask what sort of bad automotive trades you might have done in the past. Just hang around long enough, and the Hudson may come back, though. At any rate, people, it strikes them. We're not making fun of it. It strikes them that, ooh, that would be good. And there are people, there's been things going on for years and years, and even in your lifetime, that people has tried or presented ideas that they came up with that seem to be absolutely removed from any form of mysticism or spiritual hocus pocus, just intellectual self-help programs under the guise of how to control your mind or how to have a stronger mind. And they will even say that one of the great exercises, with no mysticism at all involved, they just wash their hands of it and dismiss it, but say the thing is, the mind is uncontrollable under its ordinary conditions, always jumping about, and what we need, it's like a flabby arm or something. We need to tighten it up and get that muscle there and stop all that unsightly brain fat from flopping around. And to do that, what we need to do, since you cannot exercise, your brain can't do curls, bench presses, is focus it. Make it think of only one thing, constantly. No matter what you're doing, think of that one thing. It just strikes people as correct. But now you people have got to know, if you can sing a song forward, you can sing it backwards. I mean, if you don't know that by now, what do you know? Let's not go into it. I mean, look at you. You don't have a Studebaker, so that answers that. If that has validity, if that might work, thinking of one thing, then equally, I assure you will work, is to think of everything at once, constantly. Mm-hmm. You never even hear about it. You've never heard of such a method. You've never heard of any sort of school or any sort of book that says, here's the way to strengthen the mind. Think about the mind as sort of being like, they could start with one like flabby arm, or the guy could say, think about it as your mind is sort of like a weapon, trying to think, trying to become more intelligent, trying to increase your awareness and wisdom. But it's kind of like holding a shaky gun. You got this little 38, little short barrel, a 2-inch barrel. And for you people who don't know, it's about all you can do to shoot an elephant in the ass from about 20 feet away with a 38, with a 2-inch barrel. Much less you got kind of shaky. So what you got to do, by all these methods, all the way from Zen sitting to all sorts of things, up to just attempt to control your mind, is you've got to steady it. You've got to learn to be able to focus it and hold it on one thing. How come you never hear, back to where we were, how come you never hear, well, equally, as good method is, forget all this little shaking, forget all that, you got to spray the son of a bitch constantly. I mean, never stop. I was still offering as a side benefit and treat. All of you should be able to do this by now. It's not criticizing a life, it's not finding fault. But by now you do know, everybody knows. They don't know what to do with it again. But anything that's true on this planet, in this life, well, true's hard in case any strangers walked in. I shouldn't say true. That always makes people start to choke like, a month-old dumpling. Instead of true, let's say something that works, something that seems to offer a promise, such as it would be good for everyone, no matter what your intent in life, no matter what your religion, no matter what, if you could control your mind more, if you could focus your mind, if you could concentrate more. Let's go ahead and use that word. They go for that. If you could people go, yeah, I can see it. And if you then just hint a little bit, you might say, in fact, it might lead to something even better than just being able to concentrate and sit there and balance your checkbook even while your kids are playing the TV. Yeah, it would be good. But if you said, what if you just go through life with no particular reason? You're not trying to balance a checkbook. You don't have anything specific in mind. But you can hold your attention just constantly. Just a constant awareness of just one thing in life, or just the constant awareness of that I'm here. It's me. This is my brain. And people go, yeah, boy, that could lead to something. But then you try to say, all right, if that works, then the opposite will work. Forget true. Remember, don't lose your place. It's based on the same thing. But if you said, do you believe that might operate? And they'll go, yes. I mean, there's no doubt that would be good. That would offer some promise. That would be beneficial if I could do it. In fact, if I ever have time, I like that. Write that down. Or is that in a book? I'd like to think about that more. And you say, all right, if that works, then the opposite will work. It holds the same promise. Which of those are either missing? Well, since everybody likes all that kind of Halloween and Jason or all that crap, that's the whole idea of Satanism and the forces of evil. It's like, well, goodness works. But hell, everybody I know is doing goodness. My mother and father was involved with goodness, and I'm a rebel. I'll go into badness. And of course, all the good people, or those who wave the banner of goodness, are always in the majority verbally, and so they look down on those in favor of badness. But why? What I was getting at was that everyone does know the opposite works. Why do the religious believe in the power of evil? Well, truly, just look at it superficially. If you're just riding by on a fairly fast, if you're on the back of a fairly fast carpenter and you're jogging by and looked at something, and you'd never been around it, but you was listening to the idea about religion, and them hollering, well, yes, we serve God. Whatever group it is, we serve the God. He is good. He's everything that you would want in a good lover. I mean, he's kind. He's tolerant. He never gets mad. He never lies to you. I mean, it's just goodness. And you'd think, well, hey, that's all right. And they say, of course, now if you want to stop and join up, but one thing you got to do, you got to watch out now. Once you take our side, you got to watch out for badness. And nobody ever thinks, wait a minute. They almost made me slow down. I hit the carpenter. I said, whoa, boy, whoa. And I made him slow down. And I thought, well, maybe I'll join up. Maybe I will become religious. I mean, you can't beat being on the side and having a friend, having an ally. What'd you call him? God. All right, to have somebody that's just goodness, that's everything good, well, shit, maybe I will join up. And they say, all right, but now you got to watch out for badness. Nobody ever goes, wait a minute. Well, I'm being suckered. If he's all this goodness and you guys are in touch with him and you see this all goodness, where the hell did badness come from? Well, and of course then they're stuck with these weird stories of, well, badness tried to overthrow goodness, or goodness needs a challenge. He doesn't have any free weight, so he didn't, got badness. And they denounce badness. They'll say, well, it's an illusion. Some of the Eastern religions keep trying that. Well, badness is actually it's not really a thing, it's just the absence of goodness. It's the delusion that you're... See, what they won't see is just why I'm saying it's got nothing to do with religion and God and all that. We're down to the laws of chemistry and physics, and what it is anything on this planet that is, its opposite is. And that's why I was trying to distract anybody that might have walked in off the street. All right, crawled in off the street, it looks like. Instead of goodness or truth and all that, because people tend to get all choked up in that, it's just say, all right, what's operable? What might work? And you hear, well, goodness would work. Being a good Christian or a Jew or Buddhist or anything. Being a good civilized person will work. I mean, that would make your life better. If that's true, then being the world's worst person would make your life better. To the same degree. And they know it. But it does not serve the purposes of, shall we say, local conditions. And therefore, the good group denounces the other and will in fact insist, well, it's an illusion, it doesn't work, it's terrible. But notice how much time they spend. How much time the ministers and priests and rabbis spend denouncing the opponents, the opposition. Can you spell 50%? Minimum. Minimum. They know it works. Well, of course, they can't do anything with it. I'm not here preaching you a sermon and showing that they don't know. You could get people. You get the Pope right quick and slap him around and say, come on, listen to me. And he'd go, you're right. It does work. That's why we denounce it. You know, are you happy? Now quit hitting me around. I'm an old man. And I went, all right. Now I've given you information that no Pope ever knew. Which wouldn't be true because he'd go, hell, they had to know it, but, they'd like me. Now that he's told me and made me admit it, this is the Pope thinking to himself, he'd go, what the hell am I going to do with this? Nothing. Well, no more than those pursuing, trying to be evilness, trying to be bad people. They go, well, I am now the world's worst guy. I mean, Satan won't even show up anymore. I try to conjure up spells and get the devil. He used to show up in my bedroom, or I'd draw the things on the floor. And now even he won't show up. Last time he went, hey, forget it. I ain't coming back here. So now they're like the Pope of evilness. They've gone another direction. But if you ask them, you say, all right, where does this get you? I don't know. Leave me alone. What are they going to do with it? You didn't lose your place, did you? What I was trying to give. What I did give. Not trying. Trying to believe that somebody heard it. Beyond the attempt to focus and hold one's attention, which is the well-known method. And leaving it right here to the end so I don't have to really deal with it because I don't want to. Well, because I don't want to run the risk of thickening your glasses, because most of you verbally are way past the Coke bottom. So I just don't want to increase the depth of your verbal glasses. Is it holding the mind? If you could absolutely hold the mind right now, then all of this, in fact, some of you have you've already had a taste of it, because that is a fair description. It's what I've been using. Trying to point out the old, not making up new words, just using the old ones, a difference between being more conscious or being conscious beyond the verbal stage and then just simply being merely conscious. Mentally, just mere mental activity. When you're in a stage past just verbal, normal mental activity, it is, in fact, it'd be, if you got to, you can almost describe it as like a clear, pointed vision. I can just turn around and whatever's going on, or anything I look at, people, or anything that comes to my own mind, or something I hear. And you might even refer back to some of my uses in the last few months of saying, well, that kind of thing, being able to see things point blank, just head on. That it is almost like a single, stable, focused awareness. But I could have also said, and I have played around in the past, those of you who have been around, about treating it like an omnidirectional approach, like the sweep of a lighthouse, if you recall. Instead of just a pinpoint light of you trying to get out there and find the ship in the dark, is don't even try that. Just go, which periodically pops up in the attempts for people to use physical pseudo martial art kinds of things, with the body, and to always stay in motion. Like a good trooper, like a good Green Beret or Special Forces guy in the woods. Look at woods as being always a new environment, or it should be, but life itself. And you can't stare. This is not the time. You can't stare and think, well, I'll go, should I get killed? You've got to watch it like that. You never let your attention stop. Internally would be it. It's not as popular, and you just can't ordinary people cannot hardly even put their little possum claws on it. You can't even go, God, what can you do with that? What I was giving was this. Easy way, point blank, plain talk way, is whatever everyone else is talking and thinking about. And you don't need books, you don't need TV, you know it all. Unless your hobby is just keeping up with current affairs. There is nothing out there in the city, there is nothing at ordinary intellectual level going on that you hadn't already thought about. See, most people, that kind of irritates them right there. They feel like somebody's spitting their soup. No, I was getting somewhere. Yeah, you're getting somewhere if you believe this other one. You remember the one that said was going to have a feature about how ordinary, normal feeding of the mind will eventually expand consciousness. But first, we wanted to cover that feature that was telling you how you can stuff a tomato to the point that it will become a pumpkin. Somebody spit in my pumpkin. Take whatever everybody else thinks, whatever's going on. See, this way you don't have to choose sides. You don't even have to fall into it. In fact, if you try to do it, you can't fall into it. That the Christians stand up and holler, blah, 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 and you refuse to think about it. And immediately, or the Protestants somewhere, and then the Catholics right across, they go, wait a minute, blah, 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 blah. You refuse to think about it. And then suddenly, the Republicans go, well, forget religion, we got to come to debate, blah, 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 blah. And the Democrats, no. See how simple it is? Whatever it is that everybody else thinks about, don't think about. And then call me in the morning. Just refuse. Just don't. Refuse, that word, there is no word because refuse doesn't sound right. It's just whatever comes at your normal level of consciousness right there. Whatever goes through your mind now, wherever you think you got it from is irrelevant. It is your level of consciousness. It is you. It is that invisible ceiling and you can't go any further. That's it. You keep jumping up. Whatever it is, it's there. Don't think about it. And it's easy. You don't have to. I don't have to say, trust me. There's not even any sort of faith in anything. All you got to do, if you got any intelligence, you ask yourself, all right, I've been thinking all these years. I've been thinking even stuff he doesn't know about. I've got all kinds. I got degrees in thinking. I read a lot. All right. Did it do any good? Well, shit, you spit in my soup again. There's your answer. So whatever it is, don't think about it. That does something to the brain. You mean like turns it into soup? Thank God. Thank God we're out of time and we can't go into that, sir. Good question.